to chill for 30 minutes, and there you go.
So I'm going
Please
to
join me in welcoming Nipu.
because one presentation isn't bad enough, I have to do it on 2 laptops. So I have to DJ my way through this, excuse any kind of synchronization issues. All right, so I'll start off with this. I didn't really expect to be standing here and doing this. It was this whole talk was a silly idea that I had back in May when Vlad's not here, see? So Vlad gave a talk on astrophotography in May this year, 7-8 months ago. And I was watching it and it was really good talk. And what stood out for me was that he was super passionate, super knowledgeable, and you could feel the energy. I mean, you could really, I thought, wow, this is amazing. Imagine if some guy who knows nothing about anything stands up here and tries to do the same thing, complete train wreck. And then the same part of my brain said, hey, you should be that guy. So it's been mulling around in my head for a while. And every time I'm in the train station waiting or airplane doing nothing, I would toss ideas around. It kind of formed something. I mentioned it to Matt, and then he made it actually happen. So now I'm here in front of 2 laptops and I don't know how many people. That's the genesis of this. Wait, I have to do it on this one. And then on topic and goal. So I don't have any one particular topic. I have a couple of things that caught my interest or stuck in my mind for long enough that I started paying attention to them. I was hoping I could share them with you. There's 2 or 3 things and they're not really cohesive, big picture. And the goal is to have something a little bit interesting, something a little informative, and something maybe a little bit entertaining. 3 goals. I'll be happy to take 2 out of those 3. In fact, heck, I'll be happy to take 1 of those 3. Worst case, I'll take an extra slice of pizza and we pretend none of this ever happened. But the agenda is basically that. I'll talk about a bunch of stuff and we'll have a Q&A section. It's slightly different. I don't know much about these topics, so it's going to be you asking me a question. I'll go, hey, great question. Then you move to the next question. If you have anything, save it for the end. If you really want to ask, go ahead and ask. It's fine both ways. All right, we start. Right, laptop 1, laptop 2. Let's go with the big guys. Life. Yeah, except I don't think we have enough time to cover everything. And what's worse is the last time I tried to talk about this, I made my therapist cry. Is that the same icon? Yeah, it's the same icon. Not sure that's a good thing, so we'll just skip it for now. Go to something else. All right, this is even worse. Last time I talked about this with my therapist, I made her laugh, and I'm not sure that's much of an improvement. So let's move on again to something else. How about Trump? Seems a much more realistic topic we have control over. Excellent. All right, so then we'll start this buffet with some seafood. Meet my friend, Mr. Mantis Shrimp. No, I have one there. This guy, he's a stomatopod. It's the same family as crustaceans, slightly different, but not quite the exact shrimp that picture I had before. There's about 450 different species of these things. They live in tropical water, so you'll find them in Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. And they're about, I don't know, that big, 10 to 18 centimeters long. So far, so good. Coolness starts here. They're about 400 million years old, which makes them 170 million years older than the dinosaurs. One that puts some amount of time scale in your head to see where they come from. Second, it means they've had a lot of time to develop some really interesting abilities. But yeah, forget all that stuff. Just look at this majestic creature. Just look at it. It's gorgeous. It's fabulous. It's fabulously gorgeous. In fact, I feel like I'm choking on a rainbow just looking at this thing. And that's not really a coincidence. It looks like this for a very good reason. And to understand that reason, we have to first look at how it sees the world. And we all see the world using the same tools. We have these cells in our eyes called photoreceptors. There's different types of them. And each type can capture a different aspect of light. So generally speaking, let's say color. So you have dogs that have two types of photoreceptors. They can see blue, they can see yellow, not much else, and combinations. Humans, we have three, red, green, blue, that we know. But using those three, we can detect up to 1 million different colors. A human eye can do that with just 3 receptors. Mantis shrimp, these guys have 16. We'll start off with the chart over here. This shows you the spectrum, the light spectrum, and what the human eye can detect. 3 big blobs. Mantis shrimp, but there's all over the place. And it's bad enough, if you look at the chart, in fact, you can't even draw a PowerPoint graph without making it look like a rainbow. These things are pretty telling. So that's what it looks like, the perception capabilities of a mantis shrimp, but doesn't mean much for us. So let's explore a little bit what that means. First, they can see everything we can see because they have 16, we have 3, obviously they're better than us. Great, we agree with that. On top of that, they have trinocular vision. If you look at the eyeball over there, you see 3 sections. The top, there's a little band in the middle, a little bottom section too. Each of those 3 sections can focus an image independently. That's like having 3 eyeballs inside your eyeball. So they have depth perception with just 1 eye, well, 2/3 of an eye, which is fantastic. That's cool. Then what do you do with the rest of the receptors? They can see far red, which is like infrared. You can literally see heat. Nice. They can see ultraviolet, the other end of the spectrum. So they can look outside and decide, yes, I need sunscreen or not. They don't have to check things. They can see linearly polarized light. That's already a complicated topic. I fully don't understand it, but what I know is it kind of deals with light reflected off of particularly angled surfaces. So if you buy those polarized glasses, they block horizontal reflections. These guys can do that. And then they can detect circularly polarized light. I don't know what that means, but they're the only creatures on the planet that can do that. And the only other thing that uses circularly polarized light is like CD readers and DVD readers, so like super complex technology. And even those things are not nearly as sensitive as these guys. And that's already fancy enough, but you know what, let's not stop there. Research has shown that the eyeballs of these things can detect neural activity, which translates to them being able to see you thinking. So you think, stuff goes off, and these things can catch it. And again, why stop here? They can also detect cancer cells. They can look and see cancer cells. But you know, at this point, it's just getting ridiculous. So we'll move on. We're done with this crap. All right. Now you would think a creature who has the most complex and advanced ocular system on the planet would be known for that. And there's 450 species of these things. We need to categorize them. I would say let's use eyeballs because they have various capabilities in that range. Let's do eyesight as a way to distinguish one from the other. But no, these guys, they have another ability, which is what makes them, for me, even more cool, but also it's more important, and that's what they use to categorize this thing. That ability is how they kill everything. So round 2 of these guys. There's 2 types, roughly 2 types of mantis shrimps. I'm going to call the first one the Dr. Stabby type. So these guys are called spearers. They have a tiny spiked arm. You think of it as a long sword, and they just bash to other things that they need to eat. Type 2 is I'm calling them Mr. Punch. They're smashers, and have these things called raptorial claws, which is more or less an arm with like a solidified fist at the end, and well, they punch. So let's visit the first one first. This is Dr. Stabby in action. Just to set the scene, this is the mantis shrimp burrowed in a little hole. There's the future lunch showing up at the top. Hope the video works. Yep, it does. It's really okay. The animation looks like garbage, but yeah, I've maybe showed once more. Can I do that?
Can you move the bar a little bit?
Which bar?
Mute stop video.
Oh, I have no idea how to do that. But the important part is the stabby part that happens up here. Ignore the bar of the fun. All right, so you saw that, and that's for me. It's pretty cool. Next slide. No, next slide. There we go. Now we go to the second type, smasher. And you might think, hey, smashing, punching is not really as impressive as what we just saw. The bar at the bottom, right? Like the important thing. So I would kind of agree with you, but then I'll have to show you why I would disagree with you immediately afterwards. These things, they punch really fast, like really, really fast and hard. One way of measuring it is the acceleration. The punch is 10,000 Gs. 1 G is the acceleration you feel when you're standing on the planet Earth. This thing is 10,000 times stronger. And to compare it, you could literally use a bullet, a 22 caliber bullet from a gun. When you fire the gun, the speed of the bullet is how fast these things punch. And if you are not a bullet person, you're more of, let's say, a car person, it's like going from 0 to 60 miles an hour or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 0.2 microseconds. Sorry, milliseconds, and it's even worse. So you're there, and next thing you know, you're almost breaking the speed limit somewhere. If you actually do this, it'll be a great way to make some human smoothie because you will literally get crushed into a mush. So that's what the punchy arm acceleration looks like. But then there's a second part, it's the force. That little thing puts 1,500 newtons of force when it punches. And again, to compare it to something that we can relate to, it's like 150 kilos of, you can pick whatever you want, falling on you directly from above, which is also a great way to make a human pancake.
This is measured underwater?
Yes, this is measured underwater. So if you bring this thing on land, it's probably gonna die, but before it dies, it's gonna, yeah, do some stuff to you. All right, now, just like the previous one, I have a video, which you're not gonna see because the video system is garbage. But I'll point out again, this is a Mr. Crab, and this is a Mr. Punch, the red part sitting inside the hole. And this big thing you see over here is the left claw. Pay attention to the left claw and not to the bar. Punch, punch. Yeah, I've tried to eat these crabs in restaurants. It takes me 24 minutes to just break the thing apart. 2 punches from that guy, and it's neatly, well, it's not cooked, but at least it's nicely squared away. That's Mr. Punchy in action. Yeah, sure. I put this on loop in the background. I didn't know you're a big fan of violence, but sure, whatever floats your boat.
I can see the punch.
No, it's facing the crab. So you see the back of the crab. You can't see it punch, but you can see the result.
You have VAR to.
I mean, if you can go online, you can find tons of like close-up videos. You can see animations, everything.
You have to look for Mantis or Mr. Punch.
Both. You'll find very, very interesting things in both cases. So one more time, this is one that's really cool. And dismemberment is always entertaining. All right, and this takes it and scoops off. Okay, so that's the thing. And you think already that this is fancy enough, of course, but no, Mantis shrimp never disappoint. So quick demo how punching works for those of you who have always wondered, you know, what is this thing like? This way, I'll do it this way. It's a raptorial claw, it's punching arm, it's very much like our arms. They're folded up like this, they move out like that. So here we're surrounded by air and Christmas spirit. Sorry, holidays. Thank you, ma'am. You want to stand up here? So in the water, it's the same concept, except it's water and there's no holiday spirit, which is why fish don't get presents from Santa Claus. But either way, what I do when I do this is I move my fist and the air that's over here needs to get out of the way. So it's moving out. And then the gap that my hand or my fist leaves behind has to get filled so that air comes in and fills the gap. So you move like this, air gets out of the way here, comes back and fills it over here. The movement of air, that's the important part. Now do the same thing in water. Water is a lot heavier. So when you can't punch fast, but even if you do punch, a much more dense amount of matter needs to move around and come by. So where were we? On which laptop am I? This guy. Right. These things punch so fast. Should I explain first or show you the stuff first? I'll explain first. They punch so fast. The water that's moving away is under such low. So when water moves fast, fluid dynamics, pressure drops. You move really fast, the water has to get out of the way really quickly. And that makes really low pressure. And when you reduce the pressure of a liquid, it vaporizes. So what happens when you do this? You get bubbles of nothingness, well, technically vapor, but you get bubbles of nothingness that form under the ocean in front of the claw. That thing is moving towards whatever poor crab is over there. And this bubble of nothingness has a name. It's called a cavitation bubble. And nothingness can't exist surrounded by a bunch of somethingness. So what happens immediately after that is the water rushes in to fill that gap. It moves in so fast that it causes an implosion. The bubble that collapses, it literally implodes on itself. And that implosion is so powerful, it heats up, of course, because when things implode, things heat up. It reaches 4,500 Celsius. That's the temperature of the surface of the sun. And obviously, if you have the temperature, you get light. So it's bright enough, you see a little flash of light. So this bubble of nothingness collapses, immense temperatures inside, little flash of light, but they're small bubbles, so it's not like the nuclear reaction. But then also you have a lot of movement happening in a very small amount of time, which causes a shock wave. There's a video I have next, which again, you can enjoy, which I hope, all right, this stuff, keep that in mind. This is done in the lab, obviously. So you have a nice view, you can see the camera. That is a cavitation bubble that's artificially created using a laser. So inside that bubble, there's nothing. Technically, there's vapor, but there's nothing. Surrounded by water, and it's just below the surface of the water. So up here, that's the surface of the water, and the bubble kind of starts over here. Watch what happens to the bubble. Collapses, collapses. You see a little flash, I don't know if you saw it. And then it also releases a shock wave, which is very easy to detect if you look up here, because the water is kind of still and then it just goes. Let's do it one more time. Look for the flash. That's the shock wave coming out, and a little bit of light. Not yet, not yet, not yet. There, and then look at the top of the surface. Water just like splashes out because the shock wave is pushing it out. So this on top of the other stuff, the pancake and the smoothie that we already looked at, which means when you get attacked by one of these guys, oh, Loic, you are right. Basically, you get punched, then you get blinded, and then you get hammered by the shockwave. Explains the crab situation. These things are mean. They're really mean, and that's one more reason they don't get presents from Santa Claus. But that was which laptop? This laptop. The shrimp. We're done with the shrimp now. We're gonna go to something a little bit more faster.
Just a question. So it means that at every attack, the shrimp is burning a lot of calories. Or
Yes.
it cannot make a lot of attacks per day, right? That means
They're scheduled between 37 and 42 attacks a day. Overtime costs more. Like no, they cannot do too many of them, but they can do maybe 5 or 6 at a time. The crab video we saw, I think it does it 3 times, 3 punches.
Okay.
And that's not even the impressive part because the energy you can eat, it's the mechanical stress that your arm has to, we don't know how they do it. We have no clue. And they're researching it to see if they can build stronger materials based on the whatever magic they have in there. Yeah.
But do we know the calories that is burned? Do we have an estimate or?
No, they
have a rough
don't,
idea?
they don't go on diets. They don't just,
No, but it's a serious question.
no, yeah, I don't have a serious answer.
Okay, okay.
Hey, great question.
This one is a serious one.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know. But then you also have to realize they're super tiny. Like if you look at hummingbird, it beats its wings like 60 times, I don't know, a second or something. That takes a lot of energy, but you can somehow imagine it because you see them flying around, it's real. Maybe just because you haven't lived in the Pacific Ocean, you don't, but I don't think it's that much.
You have no idea if he did or not.
That's true.
You're assuming.
Yes. Do they get presents down there? I just want to make sure I was right about that. All right, British royalty. So look at this majestic person. Just look at it. Okay. 2 seconds.
Is she still royalty or she was kicked out?
For me, she's always royal. You know my heart. All right. Now look at this clown. I've been sending her marriage proposal since 2016. 0 responses. None. Then she ends up with this circus act. I don't know. I can't even like.
You should have
So you
tried.
are very smart.
What? So anyway, let's move on.
Was that what made your therapist laugh?
It makes me cry every night, so I don't. Synchronize over here. All right.
It's a
Your
weird,
topic.
it's a weird way to transition. Huh?
I know. They really aren't attached in any way to each other, so I just have to kind of distract you over here and then change the slide over there. Okay, so busy beavers. This is a little bit closer to home for me. Computation theory. It's an exercise. Sometimes they call it the busy beaver game, to find the longest running program of a particular size. Outlook runs forever, but that doesn't count. So let's define what a program is first, so we understand what this whole thing is about. Let's say each of you is a program. It's very easy. You can do the following things. You have a book, you have an infinitely empty book, just infinite pages, they're all empty. You can read a page, you can see if it's marked or unmarked. You can mark the page, and by mark, I just mean put an X, not writing anything out, just like there's a mark on the page or not. So very simple, yes or no. So you can read a page and see what's on it or what's not on it. You can mark a page, put an X or erase the X if you want to, and then you can turn the page. You can go forward or back. That's it. That's all that a program can do. So you can pretend to do this in real life. And then we said for some size, how do you define the size of a program? We count the number of instructions in it. And then here's a definition for the instruction. It's these 4 sets of 4 things in the set. First, you read, you see what's on the page. Second, you update the page, you mark it or erase it. Third, you turn the page back or front. And then 4th, next instruction. So you don't really have to count the 4th one. So basically you read, you write, and then you move. That's 1 instruction. And the program is anything that can do this. So we can all imagine our heads, we have a book like this, we can do it. So again, the goal was to find the program that runs the longest, or in this case, let's say, that writes the most pages. So puts the most number of marks in a page. Why do we care so much about the stop part? Because I had it in 3 different parts, all in bold. It's important because it puts a constraint on it. Without a constraint, things are very less fun. For example, anybody can run a marathon if it can take up to 80 days. You put a time limit, much more meaningful. Same thing. This is a 1 instruction program that is a winner because it doesn't need to read, writes a page, goes to the next page, repeat, which means it'll run forever, but it'll write an infinite number of pages. Great, also super boring. This is why we need to stop. You have to write as much as you can, but then you have to stop. So there's a limit and you have to fit as much as you can into that limit. Going on forever, writing infinite pages, disqualified. So we'll forget that stuff. Now, Busy Beaver 1, that's how you name a Busy Beaver program with the 1 instruction, BB, and then the parentheses with the number of instructions. This one is how much can you do with one instruction? Surprisingly, not much, but it's also very similar to the one we just saw. You start, you have an empty book. You read the page, but you don't care because it's all empty anyway. You mark one page, you go to the next page or previous page, doesn't matter, and then you stop. You're done. You did one thing, you have one instruction, that's it. One instruction, you get one page. Be the same way. Now, let's try two. Little bit more interesting, little bit more complicated, but still very understandable. Here are the few instructions. We'll go one by one. Instruction one, you read the page. If the page is empty, you put a mark on it and you go to the next page. But if the page already had a mark on it, you go to the previous page. So you look at the book, empty mark, go right. Okay. It's already marked, you go left. Then you go to the next instruction. Same thing, read the page. If it's empty, you put a mark on it and go back, which is different from this guy, because here you go forward. And if the page is already marked, you stop, you're done. We can actually do this step by step, but I'll skip that part. We can do it in the end section. But the result is this. Wrong laptop. This, you get 4 marked pages and then your thing is done. That is one of the most popular ways of representing how that program works. So I'll quickly run through it. You start somewhere. Up and down means which instruction? Up means instruction 1. You're pointing down, this pointy thing, you're in instruction 2. So you start empty page, page is empty, so you put a mark on it, you color it, and you go to the next page. So at the end of the first instruction, you're sitting over here, 1 page is marked. Second one, if the page is empty, mark it. So you mark it, go to the previous page, you go back, and you go back to the first instruction. So now you mark 2 things. You continue, you go like this, and the end state is you end up here, your page is already marked, so you stop, and that's it. So if you look at the total, and time flows from here to here, you started here, and you're moving forward. So at this point, you have 4 marked pages, you're executing instruction 2, and you just said stop, so this thing's done, nothing more. So you got 4 pages out of 2 instructions. Also not bad. If you look at the next couple of them, it looks like this. 1 instruction, you get 1 page, 2 gets 4, 3 gets 6, blah, blah, blah. 5 gets about 4,000. That's kind of nice. Anybody want to take a guess what 6 looks like? No? All right. What does 6 look like? BB6, that's our guy. Let's first establish, you can't even make an omelet with 6 steps. You agree? That thing is more complicated. So this must be reasonable, decent, doable. But just for the hell of it, let's look at some big numbers. No relation. The number of atoms in the human body is 10 to the 27. 10 with 27 zeros after it. It's a ridiculous number, but it's right here in front of you. You can see it. You'll go one step further. The number of atoms in the universe is 10 to the 80. Another ridiculous number, but it's right here. You can see it, you can appreciate it, and it's fine.
Well, how did they calculate this?
I counted last night. It took a long time. No, you take the estimated size of the universe, the estimated average density based on the stars, you multiply the 2 and you get some mass. And you know, again, it's mostly heavy matter in the stars, not much. Some math and some.
I'm not convinced.
You're not convinced? I'll make that 79, last offer. Is that okay? Okay. So we have these 2 things, and you start noticing a pattern. A human body and the universe is a very different class of things, but these numbers are not that far apart. 2780 almost look like, yeah, they're close by. Again, we'll go one step further. If every atom in the universe was another universe, we would have 10 to the 160 atoms. That's this number. Again, even more stupid than this. I mean, look at this thing. But it's here. You can see it. And again, you can see the growth. 2780 and 160, they're all in the same range of countable things. So you're like, all right, that's a big number, but it's still, I don't feel scared looking at this thing. All right, well, hold on to your pants. None of this stuff even comes close to what we need. In fact, we have to find a new way of writing numbers just to be able to get close to the monster that is BB6. So we'll take a quick look at tetration, also called the up arrow notation. 3 times 3 we all know, easy 9. 3 exponentiated 3, also easy. You can also write it like this. 3 times 3 times 3, 27. This is tetration. 3 tetrated 3 times is a tower of 3s with 1, 2, and 3 levels. That's this part here. And this is a number you're tetrating. This equals 3 raised to, so it's basically this guy raised to that part. And this part we know from here is 27. This guy is down here, 3 to 27, another beautiful number. But you can see, oh, now you see the growth. It's very much different from what we saw in the previous example with the universe and atoms. They're still the same, like 3 is a tiny little number. And you went from this guy to the next jump was ridiculous. Now, you go one step further. 3 tetrated 4 times. So it's a tower of 4 levels with 3s. And the same way we saw this, it's 3 raised to that guy over here. Again, somebody want to take a guess? I would officially ask for a new next thing laptop to calculate this, but the sad part is you can't do this on a computer. We don't have computers, or don't think we'll ever have computers that can do this stuff. So it's a really ridiculously, seriously freaking large number. But that's just with 3 and 4. And keep this in mind. Let's now get to the point of BB6. All right. BB6, the lower bound, which means the actual number is definitely bigger than 10 tetrated 15 times. I'll get to that part. So this was discovered, or rather proven mathematically by this guy, Sean Legocky, in May, right around the time Vlad's talk happened, which is why this stuck in my mind. He's not a mathematician, by the way. He's not a professor or anything. He's a hobbyist mathematician. He does something else as a full-time job and comes home and then, yeah, does this. So what does it look like? This. 10 stacked 15 times. And then my question, which should all be also your questions, is what does this 10 train even mean? Like, what is that thing? Well, first, I mean, I have to stress this, and I cannot stress this enough. It is a real number. It is not infinity. It's not the length of the diagonal of a 7-dimensional hypercube or some nonsense like that. And it's not the square root of a negative pineapple. It's none of those retarded things. It's a real number. It is the largest real world measurement you can take as of now. That's, and by real world, I mean, you can prove that this is a thing. It's not just somebody's imagination, because I can always take that number and say times 2 and great, but it doesn't mean anything. This number has a very real meaning. It's the lower bound of that particular exercise, that particular problem. But we have no idea what it looks like. It's way too big. We genuinely don't know what it looks like. We don't even know how many digits it has. It's out there somewhere. What we do know is, if you want to write this down, there isn't enough space in the universe for it. You can write as small as an atom or a Planck unit. You will not have enough space to write down this amazing number in this universe. And of course, all this is from Mr. Omelette, 6 steps BB program. I generally don't, I'm not that kind of a person, but this thing makes me want to start believing in some stuff. So this is going to be a huge shift of gears. So take a deep breath. Mostly for me. And we come back to our world, real world, where you turn on a TV, pick up a magazine, go on the internet, or just look around. We find more and more in everyday life that, well, and also in popular culture for the most part, we find this reverence for the ideal and this like desperate search for perfection. And you see it in all kinds of places, but it's always shown and told to us, right? There's one thing you should aim for, or maybe a couple of things that you should aim for. One thing we should strive for, that we should compare ourselves against, we should measure our life against. And it's always some overly polished, highly artificial, very specific, yet somehow constantly changing goal that we need to attain. Some status in society we have to get or whatever. It's exhausting to keep up with, and honestly, anxiety-inducing every moment of the day if you think about it. So, wabi-sabi is a Japanese philosophy that goes counter to this. It's a worldview where you don't just accept, but also find beauty in the imperfect and the impermanent. We'll get into a little bit of detail with kintsugi. I'm going to be mispronouncing like half the things in this section, so forgive me. Kintsugi is a traditional way of repairing pottery. It's from Japan. It started in the 15th century and then became commonplace in the 17th. And it's basically, you take your bowl or pot or whatever that's broken, you stick the pieces back together. You do it with lacquer, which is a type of tree sap, which is very sticky. And then you dust it with gold powder or silver. So it ends up looking like this. Essentially what you've done is you repaired it, you made it functional again. Your bowl can continue bowling, whatever it's doing. But you don't do it the normal way. You do it in a way that acknowledges the cracks. You're almost not even just acknowledging it, you're highlighting it. And you're like celebrating, in fact, the fragility of this object. You see clearly it was broken and put together. The resilience, well, it's back, it's going to keep bowling. And the uniqueness, because I'm going to guess no two smashed pots are going to smash in exactly the same way. So you take something that's broken and, well, literally made of mud. You put time, you put effort, and you put a bunch of gold into it. You transform it into something that's completely different in terms of value and meaning. This thing has character, it has history, it has a story to tell if anybody wants to listen. And I think that's a really beautiful concept. And the really nice dumb part is, the first time I saw this picture, my reaction was, hey, where can I buy this? Because that's really cool. It shows how much I don't know about this whole thing and I need to get in it. Anyway, kintsugi is the practical application of the imperfect part of the wabi-sabi worldview. Then we have the second part, memento mori. This is Latin, so I get to mispronounce things in a whole other language. And it's Latin for remember death, or you can also say remember that you're going to die. We're getting some dark stuff now. Death, of course, is a scary and depressing topic. Mostly we think about what comes after. There's the void, there's the blackness, there's the missing out on all the fun stuff coming out. But then we end up living like there is no after. For the most part, we just assume time is endless. You're gonna have as much as you want. And like with any unlimited resource, you spend it willy-nilly, you don't really think too much about it. Memento mori says, instead of doing that, how about you focus on the part that comes before that. So you acknowledge that's going to happen, but then you think about, okay, what can I do with the time we actually have left? And that is a lot less scary, a lot less depressing, because it's a concrete concept. You have life, you've done it for this long, you know what to do with the rest of it. You know what to do with your options, and you can actually plan something that you can feel like you're in control. It lets you think about how you will spend your limited resources. It's nice. It makes you question what really is worth your time. For me, it puts a lot of things in perspective. A lot of crap I worry about turns out I really shouldn't, because nobody cares, least of all me. But then overall, it makes you make more intentional choices. Like the things you've done for a good reason, and you won't look back and say, man, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I should have done something different. Perhaps, but at least you did it for a good reason at that point. If you want to visualize this, take an average, take a lifespan of 90 years. That's supposed to be expected for this general region of the world. And picture 1 month as one dot. This is what your life looks like then. This is everything you're going to experience, starting from when you're born, top left, to your last day, which is top right, bottom right. So that's your entire 90-year life split into dots of 1 month. That's not too many dots, especially after the numbers we just saw. But for me to put this even more in perspective, this is my life at this point. I'm almost halfway done with my dots. I kind of like my dots and one more dots, but well. So what do you get with the wabi sabi and momentum mori? You put them together. First, you realize very few things in life are perfect. There we go. Very few things in life are perfect. And even fewer are meant to last. So you take these two concepts, put them together, and they potentially might help you get a little bit more out of your dots. The few ones that you have. That's the end of the talk. All right, so conclusion. What do we do with all this information? Well, I realized all the stuff I don't know. I don't know what mantis shrimps see. I have no clue. I don't know how they do the stuff they do with the stabby and the spear stuff. I have no idea what BB6 is, or even looks like, or in what range it is. And that's just number 6. There's a bunch more that come after that. I have no idea what life has in store for me, or how long it's gonna go. And honestly, there's like a zillion other things I don't know. But I do know what I want to do about it. So I'm gonna sneakily tie this back to Vlad's presentation of astrophotography. This is one of my favorite quotes. Given enough time, hydrogen starts to wonder where it came from. It's really, I like it. It took me a while to figure out what it meant. But then I realized what this thing implies is much better expressed in another quote. We are the universe experiencing itself. So I know what I want to do with my time. I want to help that process. The second one there. Help the universe, and it feels great to say that, help the universe experience itself. So I'm going to go back and update a slide from a little bit earlier on to put some of this stuff maybe in a little bit more perspective. We're back here. So, give me a second. I wrote up some instructions for myself in the, with the goal of helping the universe experience itself. Number 1, above all, be kind. Easy to say, very hard to do, but I think it's one of those basic rules that you just have to do before you get to anything else. Because if you look around outside, you'll see plenty of cracks and scars, and honestly, if you look inside, a couple of them there too. I say we try to be a little bit more of the gold in the universe. Second one, be curious. So if you want to experience, or you want to help the universe experience itself, you have to be curious. There's, again, 10 tetrated 15 times things out there we don't know about. Might as well go and check them out, and you don't need to have 16 photoreceptors to see and appreciate that stuff. So number 2, simple one. The next ones are just the diluted versions that come back to 1 and 2. But number 3, talk to someone new. You want to experience the universe? Great. Might as well talk to somebody else who's in the process of doing exactly the same thing, and you might find something interesting there. Listen to new music. This is a little bit weird, but there's this whole theory about how music anchors you to a particular state of mind in a particular place and time. And this is easy to feel if you listen to whatever favorite music from, I don't know, 10 years ago, you go back to that mindset. And that's great in some ways, but in this case, you're limiting your exposure to things. You're going back into the past where you already were, that you already experienced. So at least for me, I try once or twice a year to listen to some new CD, something new that you genuinely wouldn't, and then I go running back to the same old crap I listen to.
You know, there's Spotify now.
I don't have it. You don't get it underwater for some strange reason. The Indian Ocean, no subscriptions. Then go to your website so you can. Yeah, I'm gonna take this one back. Forget I said it. There's a term. Just don't. A horrible place out there on the internet. We'll change it to much better. Visit new places. Same thing. New experiences, new people, new stuff. You get more to experience, get more to jot down in your note. And the sixth one, the last one, read random books. So you have people, you have places, might as well get used to some ideas that either were before your time or futuristic or different culture, different place. Just read some new books. And I want to do all this, again, the grand goal of helping the universe, but secretly just for me, because I know I have one chance to do it. I have one chance to get it right. And just like the proper Busy Beaver program, one day I'm going to execute my last instruction. And it's going to be that. So I need to get going soon. And with that, incidentally, is also where the talk ends. We get to the Q&A section. Questions? Marco?
No, that's the best ever pizza talk I had in my life.
Seriously, you haven't even tried the pizza yet. I mean,
Not yet. No,
I would pay to listen to this.
no, not at that
I would
point.
pay.
right. So really, actually, there's a little chat thingy in Zoom. You know?
You have recent jokes.
So do you know any good place where they organize fights of mantis shrimps and you can bet and watch them dismember themselves?
I run an illegal mantis fighting ring in my basement.
Cool, nice.
But the question is, all of this vision, and we can still capture them and eat them?
They actually eat them. They genuinely actually, because people don't give a, they'll eat anything. So yeah, if you go, I guess in the Asian sections of the world, I've seen that they actually serve, they're very close to shrimp. So if you eat shrimp, this is not too exotic. Just they call these things thumb splitters because if by chance you get punched, they'll break your bone. No, it's just catching them is a difficult part. Yeah.
Do the shrimps fight
Yes.
each other?
Not really.
No.
Not really. They fight mostly other things. They communicate with each other using. That's another reason they're flashy and colorful. Is they use that for communicating whatever it is. Fighting maybe a little bit physical. I've seen clips of them just like one or two quick.
With just intimidation.
Yeah, they don't.
Because then my question is, who's winning between the two techniques?
Well, the guy whose arm falls off in the bottom obviously is losing. No, but I haven't seen anything that violent. They do a little bit of stuff like what I read was most of the communication happens through light. So they have the eyeball picture that you saw. How do I go back? Can I go back? Rewind all this.
It's like your life lesson.
In the wrong direction. Oh wait, pause here for a second. Go. Where are the eyeballs? There we go. That black thing you see, that's not actually black. Because of the way their photoreceptors are shaped, they reflect light weirdly for us because we don't see that stuff. That is like a reflection. When the eyeball moves, the black part, the lack of a specular reflection moves with it. So the next slide, yeah, here you can see they're kind of in a different place. So it's like a reflection, but the inverse. You see the blackness move. I forget what I was talking about.
Yeah, do they fight together?
Ah, yes. Most of the communication happens through light. Their skin, their shell have different pigments that obviously we can't see more than just the colors, but these guys can detect it. So they use that mostly for communicating. They're peaceful creatures.
Do you know that the engage was used to call mantis?
Yes,
Why?
I don't
That's
know,
another thing.
For the reasons.
but You sure it's this mantis or the grasshopper
I
family insect thingy?
think it's the answer.
Because these guys have nothing to do with the praying mantises of the land. They're just called that for some reason. And they're also not technically shrimp, so. Like Dr. Clubby, Dr. Stabby is a more appropriate name. So yeah, just come up here.
No,
There's a seat.
I was the last one. In
Yeah.
the context of the evolution,
Mhm.
do we know why they have developed such a highly fancy eyes?
Yes, something about being in the water and not being able to see stuff, and to survive, you need to be able to detect not just the fish or whatever thing in front of you, but more things. And again, water polarizes light, light goes through, so that there's a thing called a cuttlefish. I don't know if you've seen it. It's I don't know what the French word is, but it's like a flat octopus-looking thingy. They also have W-shaped eyelids, and that helps them detect polarized light. So things that live in the water, I don't think there's any land-based animal that does this, but in the water, light is polarized a lot. So it's evolutionarily advantageous to be able to detect it.
Okay, makes sense.
That's the other stuff. I don't know. There's a weird thing where they say that human eyes, even though we have fewer receptors, they're more sensitive. So we can see fewer things, but we can see them more clearly. If you show the same 3 shades of really close orange, for example, human eyes will be able to say there are 3 different shades of orange. These guys, they won't. For them, it looks the same. So the granularity is not as much, but the width of the spectrum that they can see is just the whole thing.
But he's not understanding you.
Who?
Marco.
He just wants to see them fight. I know. You keep going back to that.
He
but,
just wants to see the fight.
Good man. The question more. So,
I think there are any other questions, then they have to be over pizza.
Okay, all right, then that's, thank you for showing up.
Qui start?
Tito, no?